Alright, this is probably going to be my last video here in Wallace, Idaho. I've been living here for 2.5 months. Now moving back to Missoula. You guys saw some videos of me in Missoula in the summer. Be nice to see what it's like in the winter time. Thought I'd record a video to talk about all the experiences that I had out here in Wallace. And one of the reasons I moved out to the mountain area, I've been to Helena, Missoula, Wallace, and Central Washington, Vantage. Where else have I been over the last few months? But one thing I love is that I get accepted for who I am. There are two areas where I often don't get accepted for who I am. Number one, at my job, I'm one of the few people who are single at the workplace. And number two, I have dietary restrictions. Some of the foods I react badly to, others I need to avoid for chronic reasons. But whatever the case is, I don't understand why my eating bothers other people, right? Other people eating the crappy foods that I talk about don't bother me, right? I mean, unless I care about them, but even then they have to make their own choice. So why does me not eating it bother them, right? That's one thing I can never understand, right? And where it gets really tricky is when I have to, if I have to avoid foods and turn away people, you know, I've always held the philosophy, if somebody doesn't accept me for what I eat, they're not a good friend anyway, right? I would never eat something just to please somebody. The trouble is when it interacts with my career in some way, right? That's where the trouble comes in, right? The nice thing about the quarantine is that it no longer has to, right? I might even be able to virtually eat something and make it look like that on the screen, right? If I wanted to, right? I don't want to because I want people to accept me for what I eat, right? But here in Wallace, and more generally in the mountain areas, I have not run into that. And that's why I really loved this area. Other places around the world, I've done better too. So in Taiwan, obviously I wasn't in Taiwan during COVID-19, but the Taiwanese have a good attitude toward alternative medicine, herbal medicine, and even just keeping your immune system healthy, right? I've never had trouble refusing junk food over in Taiwan. Sometimes I have trouble when I refuse of healthy foods over there, actually, just out of taste, right? Just not wanting to try something new, but never junk foods, right? You go to Taiwan and your friends suggest going out to McDonald's, you could easily say no to that. Easily. I've also traveled to Europe, obviously, Gdansk Bay, Poland. I would say they're a little bit more accepting. Not nearly as accepting as the mountain area, but they're much more so than the cities like Seattle. The other component of being accepted for who I am is being single. I'm really, really excited about spending Valentine's Day out here in the mountain area. I don't tend to do very well in that department over in Seattle. People get very judgmental when I go out by myself. They either get judgmental, sometimes other people want to hook me up, or better yet, in Seattle we have a lot of homosexuals, and I get chased by some of those guys a lot as well. People just can't accept that I want to be single. They see something. See, I never understood, why does what somebody eats or who somebody loves bother you? Right? You love whoever you want. I'll love whoever I want, right? I can never understand that, right? And then there are some people who argue, when we were talking about equal marriage, they were talking about their taxes and all that. Well, that's a problem with the tax system, right? That's not a problem with who loves who, right? If you want to argue about that, argue about the tax system, and I would argue there too, right? The government shouldn't get involved in marriage in a truly free society, right? But so glad that when I was in Seattle, a lot of times when I would go out alone, I would get really crappy service, and I think part of it is because of our tipping culture. I think here in the mountains, people don't work for tips nearly as much as over in Seattle. So I actually tip very well, by the way, when the service warrants it, right? When the wait staff really care about my dietary restrictions, when they go above and beyond. I had one waiter one time, when he heard about my dietary restrictions, he actually took his phone to the kitchen to take pictures of some of the labels. See, that's the kind of person I would tip my life savings to, right? The problem is that, let me give you an example of really bad service. I was in China, actually, back in 2018. I was on my way to Taiwan, and I spent a night in China. And I took a walk, and I went to, well, don't laugh at me, but I went to a wet market. I didn't realize it was called a wet market at the time. I was going to get some dog liver meat, if I remember correctly. And the vendor there, when I asked him if he uses MSG, he kind of laughed at me. He asked me where I was from, and when I told him that I'm from Taiwan, he said, "Oh, we would never do that. You know, that's a Taiwanese tradition. We Chinese people would never use MSG." It made me really uncomfortable when he said it that way. He was laughing and saying it that way. It made me feel like he was going to do something to the food. And so I walked away. Now, here's the thing. If people were expecting to get a bad tip, in China people don't tip. I don't know why he did it. He was probably just having a bad day or something. But if people were expecting a bad tip, they're going to take their whatever frustrations they have that day out on you because you're the safest person. You're not going to lose anything taking it out of you. And sure enough, you're not going to give a good tip, right? So it's a self-reinforcing loop, if you will, which is why I really have a problem with the tipping culture. I tip very well when the service warrants it. So I'm really excited that I haven't seen too big of a problem here. And when I go to Europe, I don't seem to have a big problem with getting bad service for going out alone. To give you an idea of how bad the discrimination is, back in 2019 when we still were going to the office and we had office events, I almost thought about just hiring somebody to pretend to be my wife or girlfriend for that night, right? I almost thought about that, just so I could have some equal treatment in the office, right? I ended up not doing it because I realized that I needed to speak up for myself. But I thought about it at one point. Now, the reason I'm moving to Missoula is that the place I'm staying at, it's a hotel for the rest of the year. During the wintertime, they do long-term rentals like this. But during the rest of the year, it's a nightly hotel. And I was hoping I could negotiate a monthly rate, probably higher than what I paid during the wintertime with the owner. It didn't turn out, and I think I know the mistake I made. See, when I first called the hotel, the owner of the hotel, back in October, and I said, I'd like to book something November. And I told her the situation. You know, I asked her what's the best deal I can get because I won't be having breakfast at the hotel because of allergies. And I don't think I'll be needing house cleaning. So, can you do any better? And it's 2.5 months, right? Can you do any better on that? And she shot me a price, and I said, oh, that's great. So how about this Saturday? Can I get there? And I think I made the mistake of not haggling a little bit. Well, maybe I couldn't have haggled a better deal, but I think the fact that I took it right away probably made her sense that she left a lot of money on the table. And that's why she's reluctant to look into a long-term arrangement. I think technically I could have forced it because we're still under the quarantine with the eviction moratorium, but we're on such good chemistry. I would hate to do that to her. So I shouldn't have negotiated the way I did. I probably made her feel like she left a lot of money on the table. And I took my lesson to Missoula when I was negotiating with the apartment over there. So I haggled a little bit. I didn't really get much of a better deal, but I think more importantly, I made the owner feel he didn't leave money on the table. I think that's very important as well. So even if you can't necessarily get a better deal, I think it's still important to haggle, just to give your opponent a sense that he hit the right ballpark, right? I think that's very important as well. I think I made a mistake. But life is full of mistakes and learning opportunities, right? So I'm not bitter about that. And plus, maybe God has a reason for me to go back to Missoula. There were certainly a lot of good people there. I was there back in the summer. Anyways, I wave goodbye to Wallace, at least for now. I think I'll come back. Thanks for watching.